Mentioned, my name is Ben Greenbaum. I am with Cisco's Advanced Threat Solutions and Security Integrations team, and today we are going to be talking about SecureX. I can be found on Twitter at SecIntSight, SecIntSight. My beard does not yet have a Twitter account of its own, but we may have to fix that. I don't know. This is the first I heard of it. We can talk. But experience simplified, the two words it says there on your screen. That's what SecureX is all about. And we're going to explain why and how as we go through the material for the next hour or so. We're going to talk about the power of SecureX. What is it for? What does it do? And why does anyone need that? We're going to talk about the main features of SecureX. How does it do that? And I'm going to give you a demo. We're going to get a bit of a sneak peek. It doesn't release until later this month, towards the end of the month, but I'm going to be able to show you a little bit of it here today. I'm going to leave you with some review material. We're going to wrap it up, and I'm going to leave you with some resources that you can use to find out more about SecureX. So let's get started by talking about the power of SecureX, which also means the reason for SecureX. And the way we do everything in security is changing all the time. This isn't a new announcement. This has been the way of the security industry since there wasn't one. And we've got so much to adapt to on a daily basis. New threats, new types of threats, new defenses against those threats, new work environments. You know, we've moved from everybody being in an office and being connected to the network to moving to the cloud and now working from home more than ever before. The way we do things is changing. The things we do are changing. The things we need to secure are changing. What we need to secure them from is changing, and so on. We've got increasing demands on our security teams around the world. Okay, we're starting to see what feels like an unlimited number of devices and device types on our network. We're moving things to the cloud. We've got people working from all over the place, and we don't have enough visibility. We don't have enough experts. There's a hiring shortage. There's a staffing shortage in the security industry by and large. When we can even get requisitions to hire new people, there often aren't qualified people to even be hired. We don't have enough integration between all of the different products that we're using. The security industry has been very good about when there's a new kind of threat, let's introduce a new product to deal with that threat. And now SOCs will often have up to 75 or more different security tools that they're trying to juggle and trying to make all work together, and it's irritating, and B, slow and inefficient. And because of all of this, we've just got too much exposure. Our adversaries have too much time in our environments because it takes too long to find them, because we're spending half of our time copying and pasting between different interfaces and trying to remember which one are we in and how does this one work. And we're all doing our best. Every SOC is doing their absolute best to keep up, but it doesn't end. It just doesn't end. And the changes don't end. Our adversaries are well-funded. They're patient. They only need to get in one time and they can wait. But for every one of them, we have to defend against their every attempt. We have this vast security market. Okay, we've got over 3,000 cybersecurity vendors currently active on the planet. Okay, we have these siloed solution sets. Like I said, 75 security tools on average in a SOC. And we've got reduced effectiveness as a result. 79% of our CISOs that we surveyed said that it's difficult to orchestrate these alerts, to triage alerts from multiple products, to find out, when does this alert shed some intelligence on the contents of this other alert from an entirely other product. And isn't it time that all of our gear, all of our security solutions acted like they were on the same team? And so what Cisco SecureX is, it's a security platform that helps protect your business by bringing all of this together, backed by the strongest security team on the planet. We've got the Talos Research Group, the largest non-governmental cybersecurity research group on the planet. We've got zero trust capabilities. We've got endpoint solutions. We've got network solutions. We've got cloud security solutions. We've got applications. We've got risk management. We've got that constant threat intelligence all in one place for really the first time. And it's a platform that enables you to get better outcomes by using your solutions more effectively, even if you only have one, because we'll bring that one additional threat intelligence from multiple Cisco sources, even if you only have one Cisco product. But if you have many, we're going to help unlock all the value in that product that you already bought by allowing it to be used by your other products, by allowing it to be available to your other tools, to your other teams. We're simplifying the experience of working across multiple products. We're accelerating your success by taking out the lag that's the result of trying to use multiple different products together in an inefficient manner. And we're allowing you to protect your future, reducing complexity, with this integrated open platform that adds value to everything you've already got and then gets out of your way and gives your team that time back to handle more threats, to protect more assets, bringing everything together, reducing complexity, and allowing you to confidently secure your environment and advance your security maturity, because you're going to be more able to do things that were previously reserved for some of the more advanced security organizations that larger companies might have. You're going to be able to do automation. You're going to be able to do faster triage. You're going to be able to unify everything together. Even if you don't have a SIM, you're going to be able to see the logs from multiple devices in one place when you ask a question of threat response within SecureX. You're going to get visibility back from all of your products without you having had to spend additional money on a product that does that for you. You're going to be able to use orchestration and automation features built into SecureX without having to buy an expensive platform that does that. And your teams are going to be able to work together because they're all going to have access to the same information. For example, instead of the email security team being the only team that knows about what's happening in email threats into your environment, that information can be available to everyone in your organization across your entire company who's using SecureX. And so we're actually changing the way organizations coordinate to secure their environments across multiple vectors. Basically, accelerating your success, not only across Cisco Cisco products, but also with products from up to 170, 170 and more partners in various fields. And you see there on your screen a list of the different categories of software that SecureX and the products that are included with SecureX can interact with out of the box. This is impressive for a number of reasons, not the least of which are the things I've already described that SecureX is going to do for you, but also in that we decided to do this 6 months ago, and we're rolling it out later this month. But we have been putting in the work for over a decade, building this security portfolio, buying companies that had made the best of breed solutions, products from admittedly different companies. And for that reason, their engineering teams weren't exactly working together when they were two completely separate companies that never knew they were going to be acquired by Cisco in future. So we brought these products together. Okay, we've done many, many integrations between these products already. Dozens of integrations exist between these Cisco security solutions already. But instead of going one-to-one and building the spider web of integration pathways, we're tying everything together now into this single solid platform solution. And this platform is an experience that's available as part of the security portfolio. Okay, and like I said earlier, we've got SecureX products from the network space, endpoint security, cloud security, security applications and application security. But not only that, we also tie into things that are already in your infrastructure. All of these third-party products that we can support out of the box, and more being added all the time. We want you to be able to get more value not only out of your Cisco security gear, but out of the stuff you've already got from other vendors. We're not kidding ourselves. We know there are things in your SOC that don't say Cisco on them. That's okay, and we can talk later, but that's okay. We can work with those products to let you unlock additional value from everything you've already got. Your Cisco products, your non-Cisco products, your staff, your human people, you guys. We want everybody to be able to get more value out of the time and the money and the equipment that they've already got as a benefit of being a Cisco customer. And this solution, this platform, is available to everyone who already has a Cisco security product that is SecureX capable. If you're familiar with threat response, which I hope everybody is, but if you are, you're familiar with the licensing model for threat response, which is if you own a product that's threat response capable, you automatically get access to threat response at no additional charge. It's the same model for SecureX. In fact, SecureX is the continuation of the same design philosophies and principles that brought us threat response in the first place. So if you're already a threat response user, which if you're already a Cisco customer, you should be, then all of this is going to seem very familiar to you. but we're allowing you to bring that visibility together across your environment to reduce the complexity of interacting with multiple tools, automate some of your security workflows, which is new because that's not part of threat response. And we're going to allow you to get all of this in under 15 minutes of configuration time. And of course, access to SecureX also gives you access to additional threat intelligence repositories and services, including Talos Intelligence as part of SecureX living in your SOC. So what does it do? It saves you money. It saves you time. We're getting a bit into business stuff. I promise I'll get into technology soon. But we save you money. We save you time. These pre-built integrations that you don't have to build saves you operations and development time. A single window into investigation and response functions saves analyst time. Automation and orchestration capabilities saves you operations time and software budget, and human lag caused by the opportunity for human error. We've got lower mean time to resolves and lower adversary dwell time as a result of you being able to use all this time and all this equipment more efficiently. Your adversaries are going to have less time to mess around in your network or to even get there in the first place, which saves cleanup time and it saves potential financial and legal exposure. Now, what's different about Cisco's offering? Well, a lot of other vendors don't have this kind of thing at all. If they do, it's an expensive add-on to the licensing you're already paying them for. They don't have an open API for the most part, and certainly don't cover the same breadth of technologies. So things that I want you to remember, this is threat response, but even more so. If you're already familiar with threat response, you're going to be familiar with SecureX threat response because it's largely the same thing. You're going to be familiar with the licensing model because it's largely the same thing. It's included with purchase of qualifying product. I love saying that. But if you buy or already own anything that is SecureX capable, you get access to SecureX. There's no charge for it. It's just part of the experience of being a Cisco customer. We're unifying visibility and reducing complexity, and it's a key Cisco security differentiator. Like I said, nobody else is really doing this. So what does it actually consist of? What are the features that deliver on all of these promises? What are the main highlights of the SecureX experience? Single sign-on. Unifying your access to the portfolio. Do you have a separate login for Umbrella versus the Threat Grid portal versus AMP for endpoints versus every other thing you might have? That's going to go away. We're introducing a new single sign-on service with SecureX that enables your prompt access to all of the security products you've got, starting with the cloud security products, but eventually moving into on-prem devices as well, to allow you to have that harmonized access. All these products are from the same company. Let's start acting like it instead of making you have different credentials to get into every possible user interface. We're going to have threat response for your fast investigation and remediation needs. Again, this is identical to the threat response you're already familiar with. Of course, we've been developing threat response this entire time as well, so I shouldn't say identical, but it's the same concept. It's the same feature set, the same tools, the same capabilities. We've got workflow automation. SecureX comes with its own automation and orchestration engine, which I will show you in the demo. But it reduces manual tasks. You don't have to go into each of 15 different interfaces because we can just have a chain of events that runs all of those for you. And sometimes you don't even have to click run because we can have it be conditional and have it react to certain conditions in your environment. You can get a customizable dashboard. So when you first log in, you are greeted with the metrics, the statistics, the information that you need, and you can make your own. You can even have multiples for different tasks. And then the ribbon. The SecureX ribbon is a UI feature of almost every SecureX capable product from Cisco. If you're familiar with threat response again, then you're familiar with the casebook widget that exists in the threat response interface. It exists in the AMP for endpoints interface. It exists in the threat grid interface and so on. There's a little thing that's sat in the corner. You could open it up and put observables in it, conduct investigations, take response actions, all of that. And it followed you from product to product. You didn't have to set it up in one and then set it up in another and continue doing this. It was just a feature of Cisco security space that allowed you to keep state in a current investigation, no matter which user interface you were using to do that part of the investigation. The ribbon is like that, but again, even more so. It's got more capabilities, more functionality. It is available in most of the integrated product UIs, and it's a way to bring your best tools with you no matter what product you're currently in. So let's start going into depth on each of those high-level feature areas. SecureX sign-on. Adaptive, layered, and simplified authentication. One place to go to get in to all of the Cisco security suite. A single username and password to access all of the integrated applications and to provide you that, that unified login experience, protected by Duo. Even if you're not a Duo customer, your access to SecureX grants you the ability to use Duo at least to get into SecureX. So you've got built-in multi-factor authentication, again, at no additional charge. The dashboard is a customizable view of what you decide are your key operational metrics across all of the products in your portfolio. What does the dashboard do for you? Well, it includes the ability to cross-launch into any of the other products. It includes a marketplace there on the left in the image for easy access to current and even future products, because you can request free trials right out of the UI there. You can also cross-launch into, for example, AMP for Endpoints and ThreatGrid Portal and every other browser-accessible Cisco product that you might have that's tied into SecureX. In the middle of the graphic, you see metrics tiles for those at-a-glance updates on your environment. How many files has your email security solution sent to ThreatGrid for analysis? How many threats has AMP detected? How many of your AMP agents need to be updated? There's hundreds, I'm not going to list them off, but there's all these different kinds of metrics that each individual integrated product can provide to your dashboard for you to be able to see every time you come here, or even to do quick reporting. And there's also the news feed on the right, which is where you can get updates from your Cisco products, from various Cisco services, Talos, for example, and other industry sources of that kind of timely information. Going into threat response, what are the main features of threat response? Well, for one, you get threat intelligence. You can do investigations no matter what Cisco product or product you have, and those investigations will return data from Talos, from third-party intelligence sources if you want, your own private intelligence if you want to upload that into threat response so that that's included, and various other threat intelligence databases that are part of Cisco products you might not even have. The AMP for Endpoints File Reputation Database, for example, is included with access to SecureX Threat Response, whether you're an AMP for Endpoints customer or not. So bringing you all of this global intelligence together. The relations graph. If you've used threat response, this is the part you're thinking of when someone says threat response. It's that graph that shows you all of the observables that you've been investigating so that you can immediately visualize that threat, so that you can quickly put together that mental model. You don't even have to put it together. That's the whole point. The graph puts it together, and you just look at it and understand it. And you can see the immediate organizational impact if there's been any. You can get an at-a-glance verdict. Oh, that file hash is red. That means that Cisco and my other sources know that this is a malicious file. You don't have to think about that. It's just intuitive, and it's just there right in front of you. You get an incident manager that does some automatic triaging of incidents from various Cisco integrated products so that you don't have to go through the task, the tedium, the menial labor of finding out this alert is important, that alert is less so and can wait, this alert is super important, I have to do that now. We're doing some level of that for you because we're filtering down what remains is easier for you to triage based on your business needs and what are the high priority assets in your environment and so on. And we give you these tools to be able to manage incidents. And then, of course, you get response actions from anywhere in the interface. So anywhere you see a file hash, if you're an AMP for Endpoints customer, you can block that file hash. You see it in the context of an incident that you're looking at for the first time. You see it in the context of a saved casebook. You see it in the context of an investigation that you just started. You can block it from anywhere in the interface. The same for domains and blocking an umbrella. The same for IPs and adding to a firepower block list and so on. Even in your browser, you don't even have to be in SecureX Threat Response. If you're using a browser plugin, you can take all of these actions via Threat Response, but from any website, anywhere on the internet, including web accessible management consoles for third-party security products that we may have never even heard of. But if it's loaded in your browser, Threat Response can work with it. I'll show you that in the demo when we get there. Orchestration. This is a big addition for those of you who are migrating from threat response. I'm going to talk about migrating a bit more later on. It doesn't sound as scary as it's not as scary as I just made it sound. But for those of you who are threat response users, this is all new. And what you're seeing in the graphic on the screen is the workspace, is the orchestration UI, where you can select from the various workflows that you may have written or that we may have written and you have decided to use, or that somebody else has written, because these are shareable. We have workflows that allow you to get things done more quickly by not having to wait for a person to do it. Okay, we're automating repetitive, boring, time-consuming tasks. We're reducing the mean time to resolve because you don't have to have a person deciding what is the next thing that happens in our official playbook. The playbook is written down. The playbook is programmed into orchestration, and it can just do those things. You don't even have to be around. We've also got an integration model that allows you to quickly integrate with various Cisco security products, third-party security products, third-party non-security products, third-party cloud environments. We're going to talk more about the long list of available integrations in orchestration, but suffice it to say that it is the broadest, most integratable part of the Cisco security platform. And 24 by 365, because it's automation. If you set a workflow to trigger on conditions, when you receive an email into the phishing email box, kick off an investigation and see if this file hasn't been seen on any of our other endpoints. And all these things happen. All your people can be in bed. Okay, this just happens without any additional manual human interference. So what are the benefits of orchestration? Well, we've got a low-code approach. You're not a talented developer. You don't have a dedicated developer in your SOC. That's okay. It's drag and drop. It's graphical. You just line up the little blocks and tell it what it's going to do. It's a high-performance editing tool, but there's very little to no programming experience required. It's all visual. It's going to come with out-of-the-box playbooks already built by Cisco. So there's going to be a number of these workflows that you don't have to build. And you can import additional workflows, or you can export the ones that you wrote. You can share them. They're basically text files. I mean, it's a programming language after all. They're just visual tools to put it together. It's text files. Any way that you can share text files, you can share playbooks, and you can then import them. Somebody sends you an email. Hey, here's the workflow I wrote that does XYZ thing. You can just take that text file and literally upload it to the orchestration user interface, and bam, there's the playbook now available in your organization. And you can create your own, of course. You can use that tool. You can use that intuitive graphical interface and all of the other security tools that you've got that are SecureX orchestration capable, and write your own. We don't know what every business needs, and we're not going to pretend to do so. And you can have event-based automation triggers or intent-based. And what I mean by that is you can have those conditionals. If A, then do B, C, D, and E, and don't bother me, just do them. Or you can have intent-based, where you click play. You're like, okay, do this sequence of events, and at least you only had to click one thing instead of 13 things in 12 different UIs. And you can also have a mix of the two. It's not on the slide, but you can have approval steps. So you can have the workflow take a couple actions, and then before it takes some other perhaps more drastic action, it can send you an update on your phone via Duo. And you can get a little thing that says, workflow says, do this, approve or deny. And so then the person who's trusted to do that can make that decision, and then the workflow can carry on. And you can get runtime visibility. What happened the last time this workflow ran? What happened the last 5 times? You get a lot of information about the status of that execution at every step along the way. And it can be used to communicate with both cloud and on-premise assets. We're going to have this remote module that will allow workflows to leverage the capabilities of assets even inside your environment. This isn't all just cloud services talking to each other. We want to make sure that we can leverage the ability that your Cisco products and third-party products have inside your perimeter as well.
Quick question. Could we go back one slide quickly? Just the low code approach, that bit there. So I get the value of being able to do it without obviously being that technical, like you said, for a variety of users. But is there, I'm going to use the Splunk as an example, not because I'm saying it's best, but because it's my experience. But is there the same kind of I can do everything quite, have quite granular control based on, the actual configuration files, or is it more of a GUI based, or, how would I make those very specific changes?
It's GUI based with the opportunity to do some fairly granular editing on each of the events or each of the items that you drag out from the menu. I'll show you in the demo, and that might answer your question a little better than I'm able to verbally, just talking about general concepts. But it's how how complex the usage of this thing is largely up to how complex do you want to make it. You can literally write your own Python script and then paste it into a window and have a step in the workflow that executes that Python script in our cloud environment and does whatever it needs to do. Or you can never do that. It's really up to you. You'll see in the demo, but every step you drag out into the workspace there, you can edit it. You can say, you need this content, take it from this other step that ran previously, or take it from this variable, or download it from this website, or there's all kinds of different ways you can tell each step how to perform its specific task. Is that in the ballpark of the question you were asking?
Yeah, I mean, basically, but I'm excited for the demo, so I won't keep interrupting.
Not a problem at all. Thank you for the question. So this is cloud native. It lives in the cloud. It's a microservice architecture. It's all based on an API. The UI is then just a client of that API. So it's got high performance. It's very scalable. It's also very secure. It's got this drag and drop UI that I mentioned with these visual workflows that you can see and very easily understand. You can see in the little graphic there on the far right, that's a workflow. You can see that it's currently executing the step at the second from the top. You can tell that because it's green. And it's going to work through the rest of the things in that visual chain of events. And you can combine multiple adapters. Adapters are the things that allow the integrations to work. If you're familiar with threat response, they're similar to threat response modules. An adapter is what you use to talk to an external thing. And so you can combine those, and you can have a workflow that uses many, many of them. Get me this information from a security product, and then check for something about that in this other security product, and then talk to my Windows boxes and do a thing, and then post a message in WebEx Teams. You can be all over the place. And you can automate tasks according to either schedules or external events. You can tie in webhooks. There's all kinds of ways to kick these things off. We'll see more about orchestration in the demo. The ribbon, this is the AMP for Endpoints user interface that you're seeing on the slide there. You see that little blue bar across the bottom? Well, that's what the ribbon looks like when it's docked. And then you just click on it, and that expands. You get a lot more than you got with the casebook widget. You can see we have the incidents app loaded right now, and you can see a list of incidents on the left in various categories: my incidents, new incidents that are assigned to me, incidents assigned to other people in my organization. And then you select one of those, you get more information in kind of the main part of the ribbon. Across the top there towards the right, you see that there's an entry bar where you can enter observables to be investigated. You can switch between the different apps that are hosted in the ribbon, and so on. So what's the ribbon all about? It allows you to carry context, threat intelligence, and capabilities with you across all products. One of the design philosophies of all of this is that it shouldn't matter what product you're looking at when you need to do a thing. If it's a common task that we can reasonably expect you might want to be able to do from here, even if you're not looking at the product that does it, we want you to have that capability without you having to go to some whole other user interface and log in again, remember, with different credentials, and navigate around until you find it. Like, we want you to have your best tools with you all the time. And for that reason, the ribbon is a transport framework for functionality. We want you to have the capabilities of SecureX and the entirety of the integrated product set with you when you're in any other SecureX capable product. I mean, I keep saying that, but it's really the core of the idea. Have all of your best tools handy all the time. It ties our products together. It's part of that unified usage experience that we're aiming for, but it brings broad response capabilities across all the products, because if you can use the ribbon to block a file hash that you saw in a product that doesn't have the ability to block files, why not do that? Why would we not give you the ability to do that? We've got a cross-launch capability, so you don't have to go navigate your bookmarks and jump from product to product all the time. If you're in a product that has a ribbon, you have launch points for all of the other Cisco SecureX capable products. And then we have the apps that live in the ribbon. These are brokered by SecureX. They are provided by SecureX and occasionally other products. So what are the apps that come in the ribbon right now?
I got a quick question real quick.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. So you mentioned back on the last slide about the integration with all your apps, and you're not signing in, as you're taking the data from the ribbon and going back and forth between the different areas. So if I'm managing, let's say firepower and everything else through this new cloud interface, I can think of a few companies that I've dealt with that are going to have concern kind of right off the bat Management of my security products used to mean that, whether it's VPN or something else, or being on-prem at my business, there was some control there that remote users weren't managing my devices, my data, things like that. Is there any control over, really the logging into the interface, we'll say, and, whether it's locking it down to coming from my certain, static IP addresses at my company or something like that? You know what I mean? Like, right. All I think of is kind of opening it wide open to the web being a cloud interface.
Yeah, totally understood. At no point are we in SecureX trying to replicate the entirety of every UI of every Cisco product. Okay, if you're managing a fleet of firepower devices, you are still going to have to go to FMC or CDO or maybe a whole bunch of FDMs. However you're doing it, you're still going to have to do that for a lot of the routine maintenance kind of things. The functions that we want to bring together are the quick response items, okay, and the intelligence generated from those products. So somebody using SecureX may be able to see what, somebody who's logged in as somebody from your organization may be able to see that, yes, this IP address was detected when, this firepower rule triggered yesterday, from within the threat grid console or the AMP for endpoints console via the ribbon. And they might be able to add an IP address to a block list via the ribbon, or via pivot menus in various UIs, if you've given that SecureX sign-on user the ability to add to those block lists. They're not going to be able to disable the firewall because that's not even a function that we're offering via SecureX. Does that make sense?
That's one of those, how far, say I get into the cloud interface, how far can I go with the company's devices? And, that'd be the main, I think that's, when you take a lot of companies, their first kind of leap into the cloud, that's the first kind of concern is, okay, it's in the cloud now. Does it, what happens if somebody gained control of my account or something along those lines? So, to be able to say that, yeah, they would be limited in what they would be able to do. They're not taking down my devices necessarily. That's definitely a concern that I think people would have. But yeah, good to hear, that they would be limited in that scope. So thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks. Good question.
Yep.
The applications that are going to be in the ribbon at first launch at the end of this month, Casebook. So if you're familiar with Threat Response, you're familiar with the Casebook application. It's available via the Casebook widget in Threat Response and in the other Threat Response capable Cisco products. It's also available as a browser plugin. That is going to be a ribbon hosted application. The Incident Manager. Again, this is from Threat Response. You may be already using it, but you'll have access to that tool and to its functionality via the ribbon from any SecureX capable Cisco security products. And Orbital Advanced Search. This is an interesting example because it gives you a function of another product hosted in the ribbon. So this is not a SecureX hosted capability. Orbital Advanced Search is something that comes with one of the AMP licensing tiers for AMP for endpoints. If you have that, you'll have it in the ribbon. So you'll be able to kick off these detailed endpoint searches. Show me all the file hashes of all the processes that currently have network connections open on all 10,000 of my endpoints around the world. You'll be able to do that kind of thing through AMP, but you'll also be able to do it from ThreatGrid or from StealthWatch or anything else that has the ribbon. So that's what a ribbon hosted app really means. It means that this is something you can access from anywhere in Cisco security space. This is something that you can access from any SecureX capable tool. Now this, I'm not going to read through all of this, but this is the map of integrations that will exist at launch time later this month, and the features that are supported by each of these members of the Cisco security portfolio.
Could going back to this accounts and everything and access, would you be able to set like maybe like this account is under this job title, this level, so I want them to be able to see some things but not do some things, like quite granular control like that? Like, is it kind of like I could create different roles? Maybe that's the wording, like different groups.
Yeah, there is a little bit of role-based access control. I'm going to be honest, it's fairly minimal. We have users and then we have admins. And within the different integrated product, each product allows you to set certain things that that user level can and cannot do. But there isn't a central SecureX repository of what those permissions should be, because we leave that up to the integrated products themselves.
Yeah, you mentioned user and admin. I would kind of envision it along the lines of you have certain people, from other teams within the enterprise that could go in and run a report and see what's going on, maybe start an investigation if they wanted to, and then kind of that second level. Okay, we ran through the investigation, and now, like you mentioned, you want to block an IP or something along those lines. That might be your admin level, to actually take the action at the end there.
But that would be handled by the product that's taking the action. That would not be handled by SecureX itself.
Correct.
I'm also curious regarding because I'm thinking from a kind of similar to what you said, Kevin, is the different departments or different teams. I'm also curious, if I had, somebody that just wants to look at the pretty things, the reports and that. I mean, some things, yes, I would want, just print it out or email it out or whatever, give it to them, however they need it. But I'm also thinking compliance-wise, would I be able to I guess they would just be a user then in that sense, if they needed to see it.
Not exactly. The main difference between users and admins in the SecureX portion is simply the ability to change configurations. So an admin can set up a new module or delete a module or edit a module. A regular user can't do that. And so if you have people that you don't want to be able to disable some of your information sources or disable some of those response capabilities, then you make them a user instead of an admin, and they can't edit modules. And in orchestration, there's a little bit more granularity. You can have the ability to run workflows. You can have the ability to create workflows. You can have the ability to add adapters and change configurations and all of that. There's 3 different levels, I believe, within orchestration itself. Again, it's an integrated capability, and each one is managed separately. So let's talk about those integrations and about how they work. So you have the SecureX platform. Within SecureX, you've got all the features that I listed off previously, but the main 2 that allow for integrations are threat response and orchestration. So in threat response, integrations are available via modules, and we can add to the number of integrations via something called a relay module or via the API. On the orchestration side of the house, you can create custom workflows that can integrate with various things, and it also has an API. And so you've got all these different sources from outside that you may want to integrate with one or the other or both of these things. You've got providers of global data, you've got providers of control capabilities, and you've got providers of local data, and all of those can talk to threat response over the modules or over the API. And the difference is largely, do you want threat response to use this thing, or do you want this thing to use threat response? And then on the orchestration side, again, you've got the ability to aim existing adapters at different kinds of technologies that will provide you with global threat intelligence or local data or control capabilities. And of course, something can talk to each of those things, but that's 2 integration paths. Part of the magic of SecureX is that it is API aggregation, because everything that we're talking to also has an API. That's how all of this works. And so SecureX, both threat response and orchestration, use the APIs of these integrated products to retrieve information or to tell them to go do something. You have a workflow and it's talking to products A, B, C, and D, and it tells each one of those to do a different thing. It's talking to the APIs of A and B and C and D. And we're using all these APIs so that you guys don't have to, that's the best part. You don't have to learn 75 different APIs. You can just use threat response, you can use SecureX. And maybe you want to use the SecureX API, so that's one you can learn, but you can leverage all of these other APIs via that API because of something I call API relaying. So we're aggregating all these APIs into one source. And then SecureX itself has an API. And in fact, the UI that you're going to see in a minute is a client of that API. And then you use that. But wait, why don't you just skip the UI and use the API? You can also do that. Okay, and in fact, because we've got these 2 halves of the solution, we've got threat response and we've got orchestration, and each of them are talking to their integrated devices via slightly different mechanisms. So here's a diagram showing the threat response half and the orchestration half. They're talking to different things. Okay, on the orchestration side, we've got a SIEM, we've got maybe some kind of ticket management system like a ServiceNow or something. We've got various other cloud services, and they talk to each other so they can leverage each other. Okay, so within threat response, you can kick off a workflow. You know, get the pivot menu, the drop down. You can kick off a workflow that does a thing like maybe submit a URL to ThreatGrid for investigation or open a ticket or something. And then orchestration can also take threat response actions. We can have an orchestration workflow that starts an investigation and checks to see if there's any local targets, that makes a decision based off of whether or not that exists. And they're all part of the SecureX API, which of course all SecureX users get access to. So how can we add additional integrations into either part of this? Well, in SecureX Threat Response, we've got modules, and we're about to introduce the concept of relay modules. Now, a relay module looks like the little diagram there, and it translates from a third-party data model and a third-party API to the Cisco Threat Intelligence model and the SecureX APIs. So the relay servers live out there somewhere right now. The code that we've got available runs through AWS serverless architecture, but it could literally be a Linux box in your DMZ. It could be under your desk. I don't care. It's a relay server, and its job is to listen for requests from SecureX and then reach out to this other thing, this arbitrary third-party thing, number N, and say, okay, SecureX asked me to do this thing in SecureX language. I'm going to translate that to arbitrary third-party thing language. I'm going to make the appropriate API endpoints requests. Bring this data back, translate it into the Cisco Threat Intelligence model data format, and return it back to SecureX as the answer to the question it just asked. Currently implemented in AWS Lambda serverless architecture. You can write your own. There's a template already up on GitHub. We're still working on the documentation for that a little bit. But that's the list of third-party services that are supported by these relay modules. So if you're already used to threat response, and you already have many modules set up, and you've always said, you know, I wish I could query have I been pwned for any email address in my organization that I see in that relations graph. Well, you deploy one of these things, and you can do that. You can look up Threat Insight. You can look up Microsoft Graph Security, Google Safe Browsing, all these different Shodan, all these different sources of information can now just be modules that live in your threat response configuration alongside all of your other threat intelligence sources. So what about an orchestration? Can we do arbitrary third-party integrations? Not really, because in SecureX, the ability to create custom adapters is disabled, even though it exists in Action Orchestrator, which is the technology upon which SecureX Orchestration is based. And the reason for that is that if you're hosting your own Action Orchestrator installation, you can do whatever you want. But we're hosting this one. And so it's a bit of a risk to allow people to write their own adapters and then have it be running in our environment, right? So can you connect to arbitrary third-party services? Maybe. Because we allow you to do various things like create an HTTP API target. You can have a workflow that makes arbitrary web requests. And so if the service to which you want to connect has a RESTful HTTP API, yes, you can totally do that. You can set up your account keys to access this thing if needed. You can write Python scripts like I was mentioning earlier if you need to translate that data or do anything to craft a very custom request. You can then use that adapter that you just created on the target that you configured, and you can fetch the data from it and process it with the script you wrote in step 3. I mean, this is just an example of an order of operations here. But yes, the short answer is you can connect to additional web services, even if there isn't an adapter specifically for it already in orchestration. This is the list of adapters that will be available at launch. Now, they're color-coded because the colors mean slightly different things. Green means it's absolutely going to be there. Red means that it's going to require this relay module. I see happy faces in the crowd. I love that. People are looking, oh, does it have my thing? Yes, it does. That's great news. Yeah, like a wide variety of different things you can do with different technologies out of the box. You didn't have to write anything. You don't have to contact your vendor and say, hey, write a SecureX orchestrator thing so I can use your stuff. This is all supported out of the box. So what are the main takeaways of the integration section and the main features? Well, the features themselves are the main takeaways. The things I want you to remember: threat response with the heart emoji, because everybody already knows and loves threat response. Orchestration. Okay, the ability to coordinate multiple services together and the ability to have them take actions in an automated fashion. The dashboards. Okay, the ability to get quick at-a-glance updates on what's going on in my environment right now. The ribbon, which is kind of like Casebook, but even better and more so. The toolkit that follows you from Cisco security products to Cisco security products all the way through the entire Cisco security portfolio, always having the most important threat intelligence and response functions available from the entirety of the portfolio, no matter which individual elements within that portfolio you're currently using. The single sign-on, SecureX single sign-on, just less hassle for you guys, really. That's what that's all about. The ability to have a single set of credentials instead of this giant key ring for every Cisco security product you've got. You've got at least one, maybe two more keys you have to remember. No, that's garbage. We're not doing it anymore. Single sign-on coming out with SecureX. And then the massive third-party support capabilities. This is SecureX. So this is that first page that I was talking about. This is the dashboard. You've got your applications on the left here. I can launch threat response from here. I can launch into SSE, which is a cloud intermediary service provided by Cisco to help bridge that gap between threat response and your on-prem devices. We've got the list of all of my existing integrations. And then down here, we've got additional available integrations. I can learn more about them. I can click here to get a free trial and so on. In the middle, we've got these dashboards. And you can see I've got several. I've got one for my endpoints, and for this one, I've selected, endpoint relevant things. Here's some AMP statistics. Here's some additional AMP statistics. So I got several AMP tiles here. Each one of these tiles is provided by the product at the other end. So AMP gave me a menu and said you can have any of these tiles, and I selected these four. Here's my email security appliance tile. Here's my web security appliance tile. My threat scores tile is apparently not working at the moment. And here's some information from Umbrella. Now for each of these, I can select a time period. So last 30 days, and it gets me that information. I can also hit this button and actually get the API requests that it's making to give me the content of this tile. So you want to build your own dashboard for whatever reason, just click all these API buttons, copy the code, and go to town. We're very API friendly in this entire endeavor. That's my endpoints dashboard. Here's my perimeter dashboard. I've got some different statistics that I selected, that some firepower stuff that's more about the perimeter. And then an operations dashboard that's just showing me, CDO, that's not working right now. Okay, it's just showing me like some usage statistics. How many emails has my email security appliance seen? How many AMP for endpoints agents do I have that are out of compliance for whatever reason? That kind of stuff. Now, let's make another dashboard. TFD, and I'm going to select some things. AMP Global Intelligence, let me know about my incidents that I have going on. AMP Detected Compromises, that sounds good. You can tell I'm just completely making this up on the fly. Okay, and save. There's a new dashboard. It's that easy. I can drag stuff around. I can put all of this where I want it. I can resize things. I'm not going to bore you with UI details, but it's very customizable is the point. And that's dashboards, and that's how you configure them. And I can select for the entirety of the dashboard. Let's go back 90 days. Some of my modules don't even do that. But I can select, for all that do, I can select a period of time here, a range. And then on the right, we have the news feed. Okay, it's giving me information from US CERT, from Cisco Security, from Talos Intelligence. Now, the version 1 of the newsfeed is going to be kind of static, like what you're seeing right here. But eventually, the idea is that new incidents will pop up here. New alerts from your various products will pop up here. There's going to be a notification mechanism, and this will always show what are the most recent things in that queue of notifications, and each one will give you options to click on things and take various actions. There's a new incident. Okay, you click on it, it shows you that in the incident manager, and so on. So let's look at threat response for just a minute. And we're going to look at SecureX threat response by not going to SecureX threat response, all right? But we could just click launch here, and you'll see this brings up the threat response interface that I know some of you are already familiar with, but we're going to have already been logged in. And here's a Talos blog. Now, why I'm at a Talos blog? Because it's a common thing we do in the SOC, is we look at these sources of information and we try to find out, have I been affected by whatever this thing is about? Okay, so this is an article from Talos about the Lodo-Rat. This could be an alert from a vendor. It could be, an alert from some other ISAC or information sharing group to which I belong. And what I'm doing is I'm going through this and I'm looking for like all these file names, all these domains. I'm going to take this out. I'm going to check in my DNS solution, or I'm going to check every technology I have access to. Has anything in my environment ever made a request for this this URL, or even try to do a resolution on that domain. And I take one, I paste it into my 75 different tools, and a day later I'm annoyed, and maybe I've collected some information together in a spreadsheet or something. Now, what I used to do in the demo when we first rolled out the first version of threat response was I would Control A, Control C, and I'd go over here to threat response and log in, and then I would just paste it. Control V, and then investigate. And the thing that I said was that threat responses are war on copy and paste. And here's my demo, and I'm going to start it by copying and pasting this entire article. But now we have the casebook widget living in the browser. I can hit a button, and it's going to read this article for me and pull out all of the observables and show them to me in this menu with ratings on them, green, orange, red, and this pivot menu that gives me the actions I can take. I'm not even in SecureX, but I can add this file to a block list. I'm still on the web page in my browser where I first found out about this information. And I can add a domain to an umbrella block list in 3 clicks. And now anything in my environment that's behind my umbrella, DNS security services is not going to be able to resolve that domain. Now, I don't need to do that because in this example, it's already a known malicious domain, but just showing you the speed and the power of SecureX threat response. I'm going to pivot now into an investigation. We're going to investigate all 20 of these things. This is 20 things I didn't have to go to up to 75 different technologies to look up. This is all just going. You see it in the background right now, 2, 3. It's for every one of these observables, it's doing an enrichment, which means it's asking all of my configured modules, what do you know about this thing? What do you know about this IP address? What do you know about this file? Have you seen this domain? Have you seen anyone talking to this URL? And all this information comes back. This is that relations graph that I was talking about, where you see immediately I've got some targets. These purple things are my assets that have been seen interacting with something in this investigation. Okay, I see these 7 file hashes haven't been seen. That's good. That domain hasn't been seen. That's great. This clean domain, I didn't have to investigate this because it was clean in the dropdown, but I forgot to hit the button. But this is smart.org. It's probably okay. I'm not worried about that one. But I see here some of the things in this blog I have had some interactions with. I should look into, why am I talking to this IP address? Okay, well, I can add it to my investigation. And then we'll see that we've got more things, 21 now. And it's looking up, has any of my firepower devices ever seen this IP address? We see that AMP is aware that one of my endpoints has spoken to this IP address, and so on. I'm not going to go through the entirety of the demo. I can add any of these files to the investigation. If I do, I eventually find out that one of them was emailed into my environment. I find out who received the email. I can, from right here, shut down an AMP for endpoints device. So the host that the person received the email on and executed the attachment, I can just drop that off the network using the capabilities of AMP without ever having to have even gone to AMP. And that is really the power of SecureX and threat response, is the ability to tie all of these things together. Now in SecureX, we've also got orchestration. And so if I hit the orchestration button, I'm going to get presented with the orchestration workflow screen that shows me all of the orchestration workflows to which I have access. We see that I've got 57 right now. I wrote a couple of these. My team members wrote a couple of these. A lot of these are going to be the defaults that are available. But when I first used to do the demo off the Talos blog, and this is my war on copy and paste, so here we're going to copy and paste this, and people would ask, why do I have to do that? This is supposed to be your war on copy and paste. You shouldn't have to do that. So we rolled out the browser plugin, which allows you to interact with the items that are in the browser and threat response at the same time without having to do that copy and paste. And then the question became, well, why should I have to do that? Why should I have to go to the Talos blog and look at the thing and do the investigation, even though it's only a couple of clicks? Why should I even have to do that? So here's one of my favorite examples of a workflow. So I'm just going to search for Talos in the name of a workflow. Talos single blog post to threat response casebook. So this is a workflow that will be available at launch, and it reads the Talos blog, and it grabs all of the observables, and it does the investigation, and then it makes some decisions based on whether or not there are local targets and what the reputations are and all of that. So it fetches the blog post, it does some JSON escaping on the contents, okay, it generates an access token to get to threat response. That's just part of threat response authentication. And then it checks to see if there were any observables in the blog post. And if not, it exits out. And if it did, and if there were, then it converts those observables to a table, creates a table to put the deliberation results in. Okay, so there's data structures, there's some control flow, like there's some basic programming concepts that knowledge thereof will be helpful, but you don't have to know how to actually code. So we go into the table, we get the count of records in the table. If there's more than 0 that we're suspicious, if there were 0 that were suspicious, then we exit. If there's more, we keep going. And for every observable, we check in threat response to see if there were any local targets, if there were any sightings. If it's from a not SecureX device, we skip it because this is a weird demo version of the workflow. But again, here's an example of an if. Do we care about this module? If not, because we're doing a demo, then we just skip it. If there are, then we continue. If there's no sightings at all from this module, then we continue. So now we've got sightings from a module that we care about. We convert those sightings to usable text in a Python script. And if I click this item in the workflow, on the right-hand side, I get the details about this step. And in the details, I can see here's the actual Python script that we wrote that are executing in this cloud environment, and so on. So for every item, for every step in the workflow, you get these details on the right, which, Zoe, this is part of my response to your question you had earlier, like how complex does this need to be? Well, it depends on what you want to do. How granular of control do you have? I mean, you could copy this workflow, and you could go in here and edit the Python and have it do something entirely else if you wanted. There's names you can change, like this is called yes, because this is the yes answer to the previous conditional. You can rename these things, you can aim them at different web URIs, you can write your own Python scripts, or you can edit the existing Python script. The last thing this does is if there are suspicious observables, and there were sightings on those observables from a module that we trust, it creates a casebook, it posts to WebEx Teams, and we can even do things like create a ServiceNow ticket. If we wanted to, we could like spin up a new environment in AWS to do something. Like there's all kinds of options that we can do. But this is how easy it is to follow along with the workflow and understand what it does. Some final thoughts. The whole point of SecureX is to allow the multiple capabilities of your multiple security products to stop being a blocker and to actually help you secure. Now, they're already doing that, so possibly a bit of an exaggeration. But the time it takes to swivel between them, the time it takes to collect all of their intelligence together and be able to use it in an effective manner, in a reasonable, actionable way, that's currently a blocker in most environments. And so we want that breadth of capability to really become an enabler. We want your security experience as a security operator to be simplified, to allow you to get more done with the money your organization has already spent and with the hours in the day that you've got. Multiply what your teams get done with the resources you already have. That's kind of the mantra. I keep saying the stuff you've already got, but that's an important part of it because this is an experience that's built into just being a Cisco customer. It's not a new thing I'm trying to sell you. Some customer feedback based on experiences with threat response, because remember, threat response is where this idea and the strategy and this architecture came from. Feedback has been outstanding, which is why we bothered to go ahead and do this. But like high 90% of all of our users have reported that this has really helped them get more done without them having to hire new people or buy additional gear. I'm seeing numbers of up to 80% efficiency increases from our customers that have really operationalized threat response and are in there on a daily basis. And of course, the more capabilities you've got, the higher your security maturity becomes because you're able to add that to the set of responses you can take within threat response. You're able to add that to the set of automated actions you can take via Orchestrator, and so on. So I do encourage you, please do get started when SecureX launches in June. If you're a threat response user, use your existing threat response credentials to get in there, start playing around. I promise you won't break it, and find out what it's really capable of. We've got some additional resources available for you at cisco.com/go/SecureX, cs.co/SecureX videos, the SecureX sessions from Cisco Live this week. At that link there, cs.co/CLUS2020-SecureX, capitalization counts in our little URL shortener, so get the caps right. And then DevNet Day is today. And after I leave here, there's a SecureX session as part of DevNet Day, and a recording for that will be made available sometime after I'm done doing it. So later this afternoon, perhaps, or tomorrow. Once again, I'm Ben Greenbaum. I am also a second sight on the Twitters, although I'm not super active. But if you want to follow me, I'll occasionally post either sarcasm about things that happen in the security industry or announcements about SecureX and other cool, interesting things Cisco is doing.